Hey guys, my name is Joshua Koerner, and in this video we're going to be talking about arguably Canon's best lens.
I feel good!
I've made videos previously where I've said, you know what, if this is the only lens that I could have for the rest of my life, it may well, words are hard, be that lens. And that's because it's so adaptive. It can do a huge amount, right? It's a 4x zoom. You can get a nice little close-up. I like plants, judge me, whatever, I don't care. You can get pretty wide. And both of those are really nice to be able to have. The tele end is a little bit short. You get some pin cushion distortion. The wide end, not really wide, but you know, you do get some barrel distortion. And so there are compromises that you're gonna have to make. But what I feel like is the case is that just about everybody has one of these. If you've ever shot Canon, you're probably gonna have a 24-105. If you've ever thought about Canon, you might well have a 24-105. And what's also the case is once you buy it, it's free. And if you're saying, I want to switch to Sony, because I'm shooting on an a7III right now, buying all new lenses is really prohibitive. So it makes sense to say, what if I could, not have to buy all new lenses? And Sony's is good, but $1,300 is a lot of money. Maybe I don't want to do that. Getting an MC11, if you already have one, even better. Could be, or any other adapter, but I have an MC11, so I'm biased. Could be a great way to get around that, because I find that the performance of the 24-105 on my Sony bodies is actually pretty good. I don't super like the weight. One of the reasons I like mirrorless is because it's light, but I don't feel like it's that much heavier than my 6D with the 24-105 on it. So if I say, you know what, I need a stills lens that covers that focal range, this is the lens that I bring out because I have it, and it's a lot cheaper this way. So I've told you all about why I like adapting the 24-105. It's cheaper. The Sony is $1,300. Their Sigma is $900, so maybe that could be a good option too, but it doesn't quite perform as well, it seems. But let's dive into why this is actually a pretty decent option. It's a pretty decent option because it resolves pretty consistently 36% of the pixels in the focal plane. It's not a bunch. It's not the 50 f1.8 from Canon that can do 58%. That's a huge value to dollar ratio in terms of resolution. But this has got pretty good value when it comes to focal range. And that's probably why you're here, right? This is Canon's best lens for a reason, and that's apart from its ubiquity. It's also just really solid. It's built like a tank. The buttons have retained all of their stickiness, and I've had this lens for like 8 or 10 years. So this was actually the second lens I ever got. This one right here is actually the second lens I ever bought for my Rebel XS. And I was like, you know what, I want a little bit more flexibility when I'm shooting. I want to go full frame. And at the time I was like, Canon is the only thing in the world, so I have to build out my Canon lens system. And of course that's not true. There are other camera brands besides Canon, but I found that this has served me so well. And the f4 is a limiting factor. Yes, the image stabilization in here is fantastic. I find that the image stabilization when I'm just using this lens versus when I turn that off and I just use the IBIS in my a7III is, for all intents and purposes, exactly the same. That's pretty impressive to me that this 8 or 10-year-old lens has equivalent stabilization capability as a brand new camera. And that's not to knock on the a7III. I think IBIS is fantastic. If you can have it, always choose to. But I think it does speak to the long-term value of this lens. This might not be the lens that you're going to decide to buy right now because there's a Mark II version. But we've also seen that the Mark II version does not really have the same performance ability as this one does. So when we're thinking, you know, what kind of lenses will I want to keep using if I have them? Or, you know, how can I make little cuts in my camera budget so I can, you know, feed my family and pay the bills and all that? This could be a great option. I really, you know, my pitch rose there a minute, which can be indicative of any number of things, but what it's meant to be is like, you know what? That's not so bad, actually, because it's a good, solid option, and I don't think it should be discounted quite as easily as a lot of people do. So I have so much appreciated your spending the time with me today talking about the 24-105 f4L ISUSM on a Sony body, and in this case the a7III. I find that because the on-sensor phase detect autofocus is so responsive, I can end up getting great autofocus performance. I can get IAF. I can do a whole bunch of things with this lens that I bought the Sony camera to be able to do, and this is a Canon lens. And that means a bunch to me, and I think that it should to you as well. So I think I'm gonna have to recommend this setup if you have it, if it's easy for you. And that's all I got to say. So thank you very much for your time and for your attention, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.